Yeah. You gotta work. You gotta work, grind, shine, it's mine. Gotta show everybody it's my time. Getting here, you gotta work, grind, shine. Never mind who talking down, cause they lying. Don't talk, you gotta work.
Welcome to Let's Talk with Carl Lee, where sports, culture, and community intersect. Join Carl and frequent co-host Hollis Lewis as they dive into engaging conversations with guests from all walks of life. Let's Talk is proudly presented by attorney Frank Walker. Real talk, real experience, real results. FrankWalkerLaw.com. Let the conversation begin on Let's Talk.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Let's Talk with Carl Lee, and my co-host today and every time that we're on the show is Hollis Lewis.
What's up? What's up?
And I want to make sure that I want to give you a little bit of an introduction too, because I think you got a different, somewhat of a different job, right?
Yeah.
You are the project director of the crisis intervention team of community programs. Mm-hmm. Give me a little bit of the insight. I know that I read that when you sent it to me, but it includes fire department, police department, all of those kinds of. Give me a little bit of information about what that entails and what your actual role is.
Well, we work with first responders. First responders include law enforcement, firefighters, EMS, in addition, 911 dispatchers, SUD professionals, that's substance use disorder, professional behavioral health, mental health professionals, in order to build a better response to persons in crisis. Oftentimes, when we interact with individuals who are suffering from some sort of mental health condition or maybe some substance use disorder induced mental health condition, most people aren't trained in knowing what to do. So what we do, we help facilitate those trainings, help build community partnerships. And with that, even if you are trained to know what to do and how to effectively get these individuals help, you may not know your community resources that's
right,
it can be up the street. So we help connect those community resources and really, just trying to steer people from the criminal justice system that don't necessarily need to go to prison or jail in order to get them the help that they need.
And so I guess the last couple of days you guys have been in a state summit.
Yeah.
Give us a little bit of insight of what took place there or what that is.
Well, this was the second annual West Virginia CIT Summit. Basically what we did, we had subject matter experts in CIT, CIT professionals, and those who have the practical experience, been running CIT programs in their local community, just to give insight, to give, because CIT, there's multiple levels and there's multiple aspects to it. So, just giving us there's expert, I won't say opinion, but expert knowledge of different aspects of the CIT program to individuals and community members. We had, like I said, we had firefighters, EMS, law enforcement, 911. We had local, state, and government officials. We had federal government there just to, learn more about it, see how they can set it up. And for those who already have CIT programs, to expand their knowledge.
I feel like my co-host seems very important now. Let's Talk is proudly presented by attorney Frank Walker. Real talk, real experience, real results. You can visit Frank Walker at FrankWalkerLaw.com for more information. You can catch Let's Talk with Carl Lee every Sunday at 1 p.m. and Thursday at 7 p.m. on 580 WCHS. If you've missed any of the shows and you want to go back and try to catch one, all you have to do is visit WCHSnetwork.com/Let's Talk. You can also follow us on Facebook at Let's Talk with Carl Lee for any of the updates and anything that you're looking for pertaining to the show. So today's show, as everybody's fully aware that it is training camp.
Yeah.
It is just about everybody probably has started by by this week, whether it's high school or anybody. I think most everybody has gotten into that. And one of the conversations that we want to get into today is kind of the perspective of what is it like, what is camp like as a player, as what it's like as a coach. And I think we'll even maybe dive into some of the, especially on some of the professional levels, I think what all that entails. So I'm going to say this, Hollis, like I'm going to start just with a instant reaction to training camp in the NFL.
Okay.
It is, and I'm sure it's not today because there's been a lot of changes in it, but it was a 4-week dive into a playbook that's huge. It was physical, not just physically. You had to be physically fit to get through a camp, but also the physicality of those camps were obviously way different than they are now. Like you would have scrimmages, you would do goal line, you would do just outright scrimmages that's like full go. And, you're talking about some of the best players going against each other in practice, in whether it be individual drills, group drills, team drills. And, and again, that speaks for why there was probably more injuries back then than there is now.
So let me ask you, as far as like the mental side of it, when you're getting that playbook, when you guys are having your, individual meetings, your team meetings, what does that consist of? Are you just learning, are you just kind of learning out the playbook? Are you watching film? How is that? How are you digesting that playbook?
The film work comes after, in between the practices, and it's of practice.
Okay.
And it is about, like if you do goal line, if you do a scrimmage, they're looking to see whether it be footwork, whether you're doing what you're supposed to do, all of those kinds of things. I think the biggest problem for most people coming into the NFL to play is not necessarily skill set, because they probably got drafted. They probably had a great career in college. No matter what level of college that they played, they had some success there. The hardest part of it is the reality of the playbook. So,
and to that point, because I know, when you're talking about defenses or coverages, those are going to vary depending on the offensive alignment, maybe a player, right, if they have a special wide receiver, special tight end, quarterback, obviously. So when you are going into those film sessions, particularly in training camp, and you're learning, is it like you got to learn the verbiage? You got to learn when to roll coverage, when to do this, when to do that?
Yeah, you got to know what you're checking out of, because there's going to be formations that coverage doesn't work with. So you've got to learn.
So you guys are checking like a quarterback.
Yeah.
So
we're checking. We're checking just like the quarterback is making changes in the plays. Mm-hmm. We see something that we can't play, and you may remember this even going back to West Virginia State. When you get a trips formation, which is 3 wide receivers, whether it be a tight end or back or however you make those 3 receivers on one side, usually you can't play a cover 4, which is a 4 deep coverage.
The zone is flooded.
Yeah, that's because they're flooding your zone. So you have to make that check. So that would be more than likely it's going to be the strong safety who's making that check. And again, that kind of information, you don't have a lot of time to learn those checks, what formations, but it's something that you do have to spend a lot of time in.
So let me ask you this, and this kind of maybe a nuanced question, but I know offensively, right? So when we're making check, we have to we have to speak our own coded language, if you will, because obviously if we say, run a 6 route, you're going to know what that is most likely. Or we're going to say, go here, go there. You'll be able to pick it up. So in your verbiage part of it, when you are making the checks and adjustments at the line, what is it? Do you remember kind of what that verbiage would even sound like?
Like the strong safety would say trips right, trips left, or whatever side it's on. Mm-hmm. And then he would give us probably like a red call. Red call would be 3.
Okay.
So you'd have some color, mm-hmm. and then sometimes you would actually get a name for it. Mm-hmm. We started. You start out basically with color, and the very first coverage that you want to learn is cover 3. That's your base coverage. Yeah. That's your 3 deep coverage. So any check is usually going to get you back to cover 3, which is going to be red, and then there's the reality of dual calls. Yeah, like you might come out with a they may give you a 32. So it's 3 for this, or 23. 2 is the base coverage that you're going to play in. But if they give you this formation, you want to get to 3, or you want to get to 4. So those kind of checks are also available to you as well once you're in that dual coverage.
And what's funny about this conversation is that, because I know, like, for example, defensive, y'all spend a lot of time trying to, I ain't gonna say maybe not a lot of time, but y'all do spend time trying to interpret our calls. So if I'm calling something at the line, you'll try to pick up on what are my checks. So if I say, like, if gold is the hot color, you'll try to pick up on that. If I, 32, 43, you'll try to pick up on what I'm saying. I don't know if we as offensive players have ever tried to pick up on what you guys are saying back there.
I think part of the problem is when you I think I have an answer, and it's not a professional answer, or a coach might be able to override this. But to me, I think because the quarterback is making the check, no one else is making the check. The line the offensive line may be making some checks there.
Yeah, they'll make their checks,
but they're going to make their checks based on what they see.
Yeah, and it only really kind of affects them.
Yes, it doesn't affect anybody else. Yeah. For you as the quarterback, you're looking around to try to see if you're lined up right, if your backs are right. Mm-hmm. You got to check the D line to see if it's a run, if it's right there. So you don't have the time necessarily to always try to say, well, what's the coverage that they're in right now? Yeah. Unless it's a pre-rolled cover 3 or
what they're adjusting to.
Or what they're adjusting. Yeah. You can't. I think it's more difficult for you.
But somebody like the tight end, wide receiver, the running back, somebody ought to be.
I think the receivers could do that.
Yeah, and I think they do that.
And they may do that
because they'll see like somebody blitzing and they'll say hot and different things.
See, but the tricky thing about, let's say the receiver is out there and he sees 2 high safeties, right? Mm-hmm. Which would mean the safeties are the deepest 2 guys,
and they got one half of the field.
Both of them got both half of the field. Well, when the ball snapped, that strong side safety can come up and play cover 3. Yeah. So now somebody's got to see that guy coming up. That receiver now no longer is going to be that person because he can't make the check while he's running his route. Exactly. So now that's where the quarterback now has to be the one to see what that coverage actually becomes. Even if he doesn't hear the check, he's got to figure out, he's got to know where that strong safety's going to be. He's got to know where we're rolling, strong side or weak side. He's got to figure that out.
Yeah, and for all you quarterbacks out there, that is your first read. Normally, you're looking at the safeties to see what they're doing. They're going to dictate coverage. All right, so let's get back to the training camp. So walk us through what a day looks like. So you arrive at training camp. What does a day look like? When does it start? What are you kind of going to?
You're probably you're waking up. You're probably waking up at least back in the day, we would wake up probably about 6 o'clock.
And where are you staying at first?
We're staying. We used to stay at Mankato State, which is it's about 3 hours or so from Minneapolis. Mm-hmm. So we go way out. The Vikings now, they have their facility right in the.
And I was going to just say that, like I just visited the Vikings the facility.
Yes.
So I was there. They stay at the Omni Hotel right there.
Yep.
And that facility is it's gorgeous. It really is. They have
I can't even imagine. Of course, I've seen it. I can't even imagine having that. Again, you're staying in a hotel versus.
Yeah. And the hotel's like it's literally walking distance from the facility.
Yes.
You have about 6 outdoor fields. You have an indoor field. You got a cafeteria where you can get 3 meals a day. I'm sure your locker room. You got your masseuses and all that other stuff.
All that stuff. Yes.
Wow.
So we would get up around 6:00. Go to breakfast. After you do breakfast. You go to your morning meeting. That
is office or individual?
That's
excuse me, offense, defense, or individual?
It may start off individual.
Okay.
Then it may go DBs and linebackers, and then we all come together as a defensive team and watch yesterday's film or whatever film we have.
So you might have 3 meetings before the first practice.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Lord.
Yes. You could. Yeah. Trust me. It's an all day thing.
Okay. Go ahead.
So then when you get your morning meeting done, now you head to practice, get dressed, come out for practice. Practice is over. You go back to the locker room, change up, go have lunch. You get a little bit of a nap time in there.
Well, let's walk back to that practice. Now, is that like a defensive practice, an offensive practice, or how does that work?
It's offense. Offense is on one side, one field. Defense is on the other side. They're doing your individual work.
Okay.
So it's individual work by position. Then it could be group work by secondary and coverage with the linebackers. Then you come together. Then you'll break up in what I think everybody knows the term. You're pretty much doing a 7-on-7.
7-on-7. We used to call it Skelly back in the day.
It's called Skelly. And then the D-line and O-line and linebackers, some of the linebackers will go there and they'll switch out. And you're basically working on your coverages while the offense is working on their routes.
Route, yeah.
And again, quarterback is getting opportunities now to read coverages because, and I know at least back in the day, we started off with checks because most of the people should know the checks. If you've been there a few years, the only people who don't know the checks and doesn't know really quote the defense or the offense are the new guys coming in.
Oh, so you starting out?
First
day.
We may run cover 3 and just stay in it, or cover 2, and we're not going to stay in cover 3 if they give us trips.
Yeah.
Usually the way they'll do that, the way they'll manage that, they won't give us a trips. They'll give us everything else, but they won't give us a trip to have to necessarily make that cut, that check. But if they did, we would already have to know that anyway.
Gotcha.
So the burden really is on you as the new guy to learn the offense, to learn the defense, because
that's through the playbook.
That's through the playbook meetings and on the field.
Okay.
You at some point. And I'm going to say for me, what the easiest way for me to learn it was really on the field. Mm-hmm. And again, corner's not very difficult to have to learn. It's safety, linebackers.
That's a different deal.
That's a whole different deal, man.
Particularly back in when it was more running based offense.
Yes.
So linebackers was probably very difficult.
Because and they've got coverage. And they also have run responsibility, and then when you're blitzing, they're in that, and they gotta get you in and out of those blitzes. So the linebackers are
they have a lot.
They have a lot to do.
All right. So you have your practice, then you're done with practice. What happens then? You said nap.
So we get a nap. Then after the nap, we come back for 2-a-days because we had 2-a-days back then. So now you come back. Practice again, Pretty much same style of practice. You typically now you're going to have in that evening practice, you're going to have a place where you're going to do a special teams introduction to the special teams. Might be punt team, punt return, field goal block, kickoff return. It'll be one of those. They'll already have some people designed to put in that, but they'll have other folks that will also run down on kickoff, run down on punts. You know, as you're on the outside guys, you're considered the gunners. Most of those are going to be your DBs. Mm-hmm. So then once you finish that evening, that second practice, now it's back in, shower. Now you go into dinner. Mm-hmm. You come from dinner. Now you got a follow-up meeting. Mm. And by the time you get, and
far as you guys, like, far as you're eating now, because I believe you said you're staying at a college campus. So did y'all just eat at the calf? How did that work?
Yes, we ate at the calf, but they had they brought in the food.
Also, it's catered.
Yeah, they may have cooked it, but it wasn't it wasn't like school food.
Okay,
if that makes sense, you know what I'm saying?
Now, was it back in the day? Was it a situation in which they're trying, like, because I know, for example, they may want a lineman to get a little bit more beefier. They may want a linebacker or running back to slim down. Was it a situation which you guys are working with dietitians to try to, balance that out, or they just feed?
That really wasn't a thing then with the dietitian. But yes, there were tons of guys because you have to weigh in the morning, and then you weigh again at the end of practice. So in the first practice in the morning, in the second practice in the evening, you weigh.
Okay.
So I should have put that in there. Yeah. Now, the guys who are overweight, there's going to be 4 or 5 of those guys, always. Offensive lineman, defensive lineman.
Yeah. A running back or two.
A running back, maybe a couple of those.
Yeah.
So they would not give you. I mean, like, you had to be watching your food, and Bud would literally, because you're getting fined if you're overweight.
Okay.
So back in the day, there was fines if you were overweight.
Now is that weight based on your position or just based on you personally where they want you to be?
Where they want you to be.
Okay, gotcha.
So you don't get you don't necessarily get to pick that. Mm-hmm. My roommate was 6'5", 6'6", and he was probably one of the first 300-pounders.
What did he play?
He played offensive tackle.
Okay.
And they would constantly get him to – he'd always have to lose weight. He'd always be 10, 15 above. And because 300 was was a bad number back then. Yeah. Like, nobody wanted that guy.
They thought you couldn't move.
You couldn't move. Yeah. And he was the most athletic and the fastest lineman we had.
Yeah, and that was probably wrong.
Yeah, it was totally wrong. Yeah. It was totally wrong. And so after we get about a 45-minute break at the end of the day. So we'd go to this, we'd go to a little club and hang out and, do whatever you do. And then we'd stop by, a Hardee's, mm-hmm. Which is one of the reasons why I don't like Hardee's, because that's all you had.
Okay.
And so I would get something to eat. And if I didn't bring him something to eat, he would take mine, or he would take half of it. And I mean, what am I doing? What? Yeah. There's no way I can defend myself against him. And he's thinking it's funny. We were joking with it because, sometimes I would purposely not get it, mm-hmm. and he'd be like, so I'd come in and he'd be laying in his bed. I go over, sit my bag down, square up, start eating, and he'll get up and he'll have his hand like he's pinching, like he gonna take a half of that burger. And I'm like, and I called him Big Boy. I said, Big Boy, no, you ain't getting none of this because you got to get your weight down. Mm-hmm. He would call me Big Boy. He said, Big Boy, I'm getting I'm gonna get some of that one way or the other. And so he would physically take it. He would physically just grab it. So every now and then I would bring it to him, But I and even buying him one, and I never bought him fries, so he would steal some of my fries, but I would never buy him fries because I knew that was really no good.
Got to get him. I don't know if they had salads back in the day. They
didn't have no salads.
So let me ask you this, kind of to that point. I know, and we'll talk about this in a second, when you were a coach at West Virginia State University, like we had the running test. Mm-hmm. So was that something that you guys had in the pros? Did you have like any sort of physical test that you had to achieve in order to even participate in practice?
Bud Grant, his idea of being in shape was gassers, which is, again, that's an old school run.
That's what we ran.
Yeah. So he would make you run the gassers, and you'd have to be able to run so many in a certain amount of time. And if you couldn't, then, again, his idea was fining and all those kinds of things. As we went on, Les Steckel created an actual running test. Mm-hmm. And it was extremely difficult, and a lot of players had, it was like, what did they call it? Like, was it the Iron Man contest or something like that? It was something like that to insinuate like whoever the best person was. Yeah. Actually, Darren Nelson won it out of Stanford. He was our running back. But the conditioning piece of it was really, really impactful because you had to do a whole bunch to get there. Because Bud's idea was you should be in shape when you get here. Yeah. And so if you weren't in shape when you got there, it was going to show up. Okay. And then when Bernsey, I call him Bernsey so much, Jerry Burns, he kind of took a little bit of Les Steckel's and a little bit of Bud's to create a running test. So you'd have to do so many of this and so many of that to be able to do it. And then sometimes we would run some 40s and some stuff like that just as for speed stuff. But it was really old school, like walking anywhere on the field, like you coming out of, let's say you come in for me. Mm-hmm. Let's say you're not even thinking about the possibility of walking on. Yeah. And saying, hey, Carl, I got you. I'm not even thinking about not running off the field. Mm-hmm. And again, Bud was not a bench guy. So like you could never leave your helmet. Mm-hmm. You could never sit your helmet down. You could never leave it. You could never sit on it. You remember a whole lot of that because that made sense to me. Like the helmet's the most important thing. So no one could ever put their helmet down and walk away from it. Mm-hmm. You always had to have it in your hand. Yeah. And again, I created that for State because I thought it was a great idea.
Yeah. Okay. So kind of not necessarily to that point, but like, again, when you're entering camp at the professional level, again, I think even back in the day, the roster was comprised of 52, 53 guys, right? Mm-hmm. So in addition to those guys who are veterans, those guys who are drafted, you also have a litany of free agents that are part of this training camp. Right. So generally, again, and we're talking about guys fighting for their professional lives in a sport where there is, and particularly at that time, there is necessarily no second, there's no second NFL. There's no other opportunities. Right. And if there are, they're not opportunities to really make a livable wage. Even today, I mean, you have the USF or UFL, and that's pretty good. But again, it's just that one. You have Canada, and that's kind of, and you're starting to have to sprout some leagues overseas. So how was the competition level at practice, considering like this is the shot? It's me and you being friends, but me and you both playing either cornerback or quarterback. Mm-hmm. Okay, we know that because if they drafted a quarterback, he's staying. Yeah, you already know that he's staying because he's probably high 1, 2, 3, 4 maybe. He's staying, so he's going to be the backup. So one of us has got to go.
And I was in that situation with a gentleman by the name of John Swain, who was a corner, and they brought in a guy by the name of Mike Holt, who had already covered Jerry Rice in college and shut him down. Mm-hmm. So there was no question he was going to be there. Mm. So the competition was really between me and him, because one of us was going to have to start. And you know it. You know who your competition is. It just depends, but you try to stay friendly with it. Now, me and Swain didn't stay all the time friendly with it, because he wasn't really, like, we weren't the best of friends. You know, we were okay, but we didn't necessarily we weren't hanging out together. Mm-hmm. And so so to me, that made it even better for me, because I had no problem in trying to get that position, you know. And I think most players, and if you think about it in your own mindset, you may like me, but only one of us is going to make it. Yeah. You may stay cool with me, but on the other side of it, every time I make a play, you're thinking about I need to make two.
Mm-hmm. I mean, in this situation, not only is it about just making the team or even starting, but you're talking about like a living. You're talking about dollars.
Yes,
you know. What
yes,
I mean?
Because again, like you said, back in those days, you didn't have. Only place you had to go back then was Canada.
Canada, yeah, and you only get a limited number of Americans.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and that's not where, if you played in the league, that's the last place you want to go now is Canada. If you started there and came back, that's another story. But you don't want to leave the league. And I think it's even worse if you got a little bit of play time and you think that you could play and you get cut. You're hoping, if anything, to get picked up by somebody else, you know, compared to getting stuck and being forced maybe like not to play at all.
So let me ask you that, like, far as like, you know, because you played in Minnesota. Minnesota's right there. Far as next to Canada. Yeah. Was there ever like any sort of relationship with those players up there? Did they ever come down, try to like watch the games, or just?
I think we had a couple of guys. I don't remember their names. I think we had a couple guys that had come down. Mm-hmm. I want to say Neil Gugamos might have been one of those players, but I'm not 100% sure, because I know I'm not sure, but it was. It didn't make it any easier, or it wasn't any more acceptable to go or to come. It's better to come down if you're in. Yeah, if you're there and you're getting a chance to play in the league, I think that's better. But let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Let's Talk with Carl Lee is presented by attorney Frank Walker. Real talk, real experience, real results. FrankWalkerLaw.com. Comment on episodes, ask Carl and Hollis questions, or suggest topics at our Facebook page. Search for Let's Talk with Carl Lee, and remember to like the page to become part of the conversation.
Let's face it, bad things happen to good people. Seriously injured in a car accident, trucking accident, or even wrongfully arrested. Life happens, and when it happens to you, you will need sound legal advice and aggressive representation. That's when you call attorney Frank Walker at 304-413-0179. That's 304-413-0179. Lock it in your phone, text it to a friend. 304-413-0179. Or visit online at attorneyfrankwalker.com.
Find previous episodes of Let's Talk at WCHSnetwork.com/Let's Talk. This is Let's Talk with Carl Lee. Now, back to the conversation.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back, and I want to give another little shout out to Frank Walker. Let's Talk is proudly presented by attorney Frank Walker. Real talk, real experience, real results. You can visit Frank Walker at FrankWalkerLaw.com for more information. You can catch Let's Talk anytime, but we're on Sundays at 1 p.m. and Thursday at 7 p.m. on 580. All right, so Hollis, in the lining of those, in line of those questions, one of the interesting things that I think about when I answer questions like that is the seriousness of practice, and the relevance of how important every play that you try to make or don't make, how that plays against you or for you, how relevant that, I think kids think like when they, oh, my bad. Mm-hmm. Like, that's not, that's not a term, in camp.
Yeah.
Because you mess up, you do something that's kind of unexpected, something that you shouldn't do. You blow coverages. You blow blitzes. You go to the wrong gap. You drop balls that hit you right in the hand. Those are way bigger than my bad.
Yeah, I mean, because like I said, not only you may be affecting other players, but you're affecting yourself as well.
Absolutely,
and your ability to be on this team.
Can we trust you? Because if you drop a ball that's wide open, and everybody and you've heard this before, anybody can do that. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
You need to worry about it when you start talking about you want to get to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
You drop 2 balls that are thrown right to you. They're already looking to see if there's somebody else. How many did you catch? And if you caught all yours, I got an issue.
Yeah.
Because now they're looking where? At you and thinking, and again, unless you're way in the top of the draft and you're in, you don't have a lot of
room for error. Yeah, that creates, that can create a lot of just pressure.
Yes.
So let me ask you, and I know that, like, for example, this week there have been a lot of discussions about Aaron Rodgers playing preseason games, and there's been a lot of discussion in general about the preseason games, whether they're going to lower it to 2, move it up the regular season to 18, blah, blah, blah. So when you were in the league and everything like that, how important were those preseason games?
They were critical for me early on.
Okay.
Trying to make the team.
Yeah.
When you get that opportunity to get on the field, and imagine running on the field as a rookie. I don't care what draft pick you are. But I was in right in the middle. I'm running on the field for the first time with a Viking uniform on against whatever team.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm getting ready to play. It's the ultimate dream come true.
Mm-hmm.
But what you don't realize is the skill set and the speed of the game.
Did practice and training camp adequately prepare you for that?
Yes and no.
Mm-hmm.
I got the luxury to go against Anthony Carter, AC from Michigan, constantly. Mm-hmm. So at least I saw somebody who was great. Yeah. I went against somebody who was great. But when you're in the game, even a preseason game, and you're against somebody you don't know, or what happens when you go out with the starter and you're looking at Sterling Sharp, and he was behind me, and you don't know his history, or Jerry Rice. You're standing out there against him, and you making the team may be all about how you handle that.
Yeah.
There is no starstruck, because if you're starstruck and you're paying attention to who you got a problem.
No, that's important nuance.
I mean, you can't. You have to go out and play as hard as you can, and just play. And you need to make it like it was youth football. You can't say, man, I'm in the NFL. I'm running on the field and I'm thinking, man, this is my first time. Imagine the first time you're running on a game field in a game situation, and you're in the NFL, and you're running out there, and lo and behold, you got a Hall of Fame receiver that's across from you that you might have grown up with. You may have seen him when Sammy White was there, and Sammy White was a great Viking receiver, a great NFL receiver, and I knew who he was as a kid. I knew who he was. He ran and his best route was a post corner, and he ran a post corner on me year 3 maybe, because I think it was like right at his last season. And Hollis, I'm still running to the post. I'm still running to the post. He killed me. Yeah. I mean, for me to have made a turn back to get to the corner, I'm tearing my knee, ankle, hip, everything out. That's how bad it was. Luckily, it wasn't year 1.
Yeah.
But you know, it's crazy because when you think about playing, that's your goal. And when you get there, you just don't understand. You know, Tommy Kramer is the quarterback, you know, and you're thinking, man, I remember him, you know, and you're trying not to. You're like, okay, that's Tommy Kramer. Okay, so you know, I'm Carl Lee.
What?
You know,
you got to think like that.
You have to find a way to get there, because if you don't, you're going to struggle.
So let me ask you this. Okay, so I think kind of what you've articulated is maybe from a younger player standpoint going through camp and different things of that nature. So when you're in, let's say, years 10, year 11, you're maybe New Orleans. How is that training camp experience? Is it just like, oh God, let's get this over with?
Absolutely, absolutely. When I got to New Orleans, I was released from the Vikings, and I got to New Orleans. I couldn't even, like, camp was like, I already know camp.
Yeah.
I already know what this is going to be. Now, I don't know how much we're going to run. It's a different coach and blah, 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 blah. I got a new position coach. I got a new coordinator, got a new head coach. I got all these guys that I don't know. I may have heard their name.
And you can argue that you probably experienced that before when you were at the Vikings. You had multiple coaches, and
I had changed coaches. Yeah. I had.
So even that wasn't necessarily new.
That wasn't necessarily new.
Yeah, you just in the New Orleans Heat now.
But I'm in the New Orleans Heat, and you know, and I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, I'm not coming here and not playing. Mm-hmm. So now I'm picking, like, okay, I got to get that corner's job, and I'm hoping that they didn't pick me, get me off of waivers, and think that I'm want to be a backup.
Yeah,
you know, because I was guaranteed to have that season, so that was one of the deals that I got cut. That I wanted to be, you know, I didn't want to come to a place that you were going to turn around. Try to play, see if I fit, see if I can still play, and then you're going to cut me. So you either had to bring me in and keep me for the year, or I'm not coming.
Yeah.
And I even turned Pete Carroll down in San Francisco.
What?
Because he couldn't give it to me.
Oh, okay.
He couldn't give it to me. And he already had.
Was that 92?
That's 94. That's
Super Bowl.
That's 94.
Whoa.
And I was like, I'm not going there to get cut. You know, they had some young guys that were pretty good.
Okay, I got
and
you.
I'm thinking to myself, okay, I'm not questioning whether or not I can beat him out. I don't think Pete wants me for that. I think he wants me for nickel and dime, you know, which is the extra, you know, when you go to 5 DBs or 6 DBs, it's dime, and 5, you know, is nickel. So I'm like thinking he's trying to put me, because I could play in the middle. That's where I played. With him, I played inside.
So he kind of wanted you as a specialist,
yes,
not necessarily every
and I'm going to be sitting there for the rest of the game.
Yeah,
and I'm like, no, I don't think I don't want that.
You didn't look at that like, well, maybe if he has me here and I'm a specialist, I'm not playing every down. Maybe the career lasts for maybe 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 more years.
No, I didn't think. No, I didn't. No, because I knew. Well. I won't say that I knew. But I knew I was at the end.
Okay.
Because I had a lot of years in, and I played in literally my entire career with the Vikings. I was on the field.
Yeah.
And
you didn't have a situation where you just kind of rolled the
I didn't have a year where I played like part time. You know, I played full time my entire career there, and I wasn't willing to, and I didn't want to sit, and I didn't want to, and again, I think I've told you this, and I don't know if I've said it on air, but when I was playing for the Saints, and we were in a game, and I think it might have been Denver, but a guy ran a curl route. Hollis, I knew it like the receiver knew it. I knew it like the quarterback knew it. And I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be my first pick. And if I get it on the curl, that's a chance. That's a pick six.
Yeah, that could be a pick six.
So this is getting ready to be this big play. And man, next thing I realized, I'm laying down on the ground where I had tackled him and didn't even touch the ball. And I said to myself, oh, something's wrong. I knew, and that's something that nobody else knows. That's like, okay, they threw a curl, he made a tackle, no big deal. Yeah. For me, I knew it from the snap.
Yeah,
and I couldn't get there. And it's not like I slipped. It's not like anything that I could have come up with to make it as an excuse would not fit.
Yeah.
And I was like,
done.
I'm done.
So let me ask you, just going back to the training camp, just how that last year, maybe the last 2 years, how was the training camp experience different? Was it just like, how was it?
It was being with the Saints, and they had a bunch of young guys, and even their coach, Jim Moore Jr.
Okay,
It was his first year coaching DBs for his dad. So he was just getting started. And so I'm older than him. Wow. You know what I'm saying?
And I don't believe he wasn't an NFL guy.
No,
like that.
No,
okay.
Not at all. And so Dad was bringing him on and trying to get him adjusted. And like he would, and I don't mind this, but he'd be like, did I say that right? Is that because he's thinking like I'm this veteran.
Oh, so he's kind of leaning.
Yeah, he's kind of leaning on me, and I'm like, no, I'm not used to that. You, the coach, tell me what to do.
Yeah.
I don't want. And it wasn't like I didn't want to help him. It was like I was confused with it because I had never experienced this situation. I wasn't happy about it anyway. Like I said, that was going to be my last year with the Vikings. That's the year I went to the Saints. That was going to be my last year. I was going to retire after that.
Yeah, because I remember you told me you wanted to retire.
Yes, I wanted to retire as a Viking. And so, everything about that situation was really like no good for me. I wasn't happy. It was like doing something that you really don't want to do, and you got to do it at a high level. I'm trying to convince myself to, every game to play hard. And, I had a strain, a hip flexor.
Those are the most annoying.
Yes,
injuries,
yes.
man.
And I'm thinking to myself, man, maybe I need to milk this.
And that's funny because I think that oftentimes we don't think of professional athletes having that sort of mindset. We don't think of them like needing to draw motivation. But I think that's maybe pervasive just in everything, whether it's marriage, whether it's your professional career, no matter how it is.
We were 3-13 in Minnesota my second year with Les Steckel. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you now, there were a ton of guys who came out, missed numbers of games solely because they were injured. And I'm making the case that they were milking those injuries because it was just we just weren't good,
nowhere.
And we're not going nowhere. And between the three games, it was like early, middle, late.
So it
wasn't like we got
stretches of losses.
No, we didn't have no stretch of wins.
Yeah,
they were all stretches of losses, and so you ain't trying to get back in there. You don't want to be part of that.
And see, that's crazy because, we don't think of it like that. I mean, I think if you play sports at any level, we all know that guy, right? We all know them guys or girls who they're going to milk it. They're going to kind of lay back when things are going good. They're front runners, but we don't necessarily think of professional athletes in that sort of.
There are guys that there are players, legit players, who will milk training camp for whatever reason. I got a little tweak in my hip. Yeah. I got a little tweak in my calf, little issue with my shoulder. And brother, they're gonna sit out.
Yeah, and what's crazy to me, because I've known those type of guys, They'll milk it. They'll milk the 2-a-days. They'll maybe practice 1 week. They're out for 2 weeks, whatever it is. But it's some guys that can do that, sit around, kind of piddle around, and then they'll just come out and ball. Like, I've always kind of been envious of that guy who can do that, because I'm not that guy. Like, I need all the practices, all the mental work I can get.
And okay, so now as a coach, to you, I don't think that's true about you. What? I don't, as being able to have coached you, I don't think that that's true about you. I think your issue was you were not dedicated to football as much as you were success. You were looking to be, you wanted to be somebody. You were academically, you knew you were solid. Yeah. You knew you wanted something. So what was competing against you on the football field was you being the person that you became.
Maybe.
There's no question, because if you the dude who wants to get somewhere on it, wants it to take him somewhere, right? Mm-hmm. You playing hurt, I played hurt a ton of times.
But I'll say this though. I think what I didn't understand is that. And it's funny that I would even say this. The same way I took the classroom is the same way I needed to take the field.
Yes.
As far as I needed to have, like, the study portion of it. Like, I needed to, like, almost be in a football library and to study it ad nauseum, because I think that's where, like, my understanding comes from. Like you said, your understanding is going to come from on the field. If I can get it, like, mentally first, and then I could practice it, then it comes. Just like Chris Branham, he taught me kind of the nuances of throwing. He gave me a book. I read the book. he literally gave me a book by Phil Simms, who's like just throwing you the basic mechanics of throwing. I read the whole book multiple times, and then I was able to practice it. So that's kind of where, and I'll say this: I don't think I understood how to study football.
And again, I'm staying at the coach, and you're my player now. Yeah. And I'm going to take Chris. Chris did have he did do some studying. He kind of did know a little bit more, but he didn't have the size and all of the things that you had. Mm-hmm. And you were set up to be able to really be a really good quarterback.
And that's what hurts, man.
Yeah, because part of all of the knowledge stuff that you've learned from through the political realm, through your life, that you went in and studied and learned it, the rules, the law, all this kind of stuff. If you'd have put just a quarter of that into football, and because think about what you know about cover 2, cover 3, cover 4 now. Yeah. It's like, that kind of stuff. It's like, I should be able to throw in the hole on any one of those coverages. I should know what to do whatever coverage you give me.
And what's crazy is this weekend, it's funny, a thought popped in my head. I remember Mike Mayer. Yes. He was our Mike Mayer. He was a safety at West Virginia State. He was an All-American. He was a really high-level player. Yeah. And I remember he was staying here for the summer. We're at state practicing, and we're just kind of, not him, but us. We're we're there, but we just want to feel throwing. It's kind of lollygagging around, but we're there.
It's like just passing balls, but you're there.
Yeah, we're there.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But it wasn't necessarily very intense.
Right.
Man, he rips into me. Just rips. Don't you want to be great? Just rips into me. And at the time, I was just like, man, Mike, chill out. You're always intense. You know what I'm saying? I'm just kind of playing him off. But I don't think I understood what he was actually trying to say. And, we're young, so he didn't necessarily articulate it. But what he was trying to say was to your point. And I just say, if you have that opportunity, like I always tell kids, if you have the opportunity to play, just go ahead and max it out. Like I said, I was a 6'3", 230 quarterback. I'm entering camp at 230, losing 20 pounds. You know what I'm saying? After camp. So, and I was built to take hits, and it was just, I was never a guy that was hurt often. So it was just, And
then I'm going into college. I graduated high school at 55, get to college at 64, and
And you eating everything under the sun.
Everything. Because I knew what I wanted, and I knew that I had to get bigger. I knew I had to get stronger. I knew I had to get faster. And I didn't have the – see, I put football on the only burner, right? Academics were not on the burner for me. Mm-hmm. I had to get readjusted into making sure taking care of the academic piece because I was so locked into football, and I'm one step away.
Yeah, and I always tell kids I don't ever tell kids have a plan A, plan B, whatever like that. Get locked into what you want to do. I mean, have other interests, but be focused because to your point, if you look at your football career, you were able to max it out. You were able to go to the highest level. You were able to coach. You were able to have a career at state. And you have a career based off of athletics, what you're doing now. And speaking of that, I don't know how much time we got left, but I want to talk about because we both are fans of the Olympics,
yes,
and we both are fans of rugby sevens. To me, like that's my pride hand. Besides track and field, which we'll talk about later as it comes up. But that's probably my favorite Olympic sport. And I don't know if you watched the women's.
I watched the women's.
It's phenomenal.
Listen, I don't know. I'm not 100% sure that there are some dudes who I know I played ball with better not get out there with them.
Yeah, man. It was
because they're not playing.
Yeah.
I mean that thing is physical.
Right?
I mean, and you say, oh, well, it's just a girl. Okay.
Yeah.
Get out there and get hit. And you ain't got no pads on.
Nothing.
You ain't got nothing on. So you basically playing sandlot.
And see, to me, and even if you watch the guys, because the guys had the rugby seven, I think the U.S. was I want to say they were in the bronze. They were kind of in the hunt, but we didn't make it. And it's just such a great sport. And why I love it so much is because it's what we did as kids, essentially.
Yes,
Obviously really structured and rules.
Yes.
And I think I would love to see a rugby 7 league in the United States because I think for a lot of our D2 players, a lot of our players who don't make the NFL or don't make, Canada, that would be a great alternative for them to start playing.
But think about it. Okay. Those guys know that they're going to have gear on.
Yeah.
Everybody who plays football with gear on can't necessarily play it with no gear on.
I mean, that's true. That's true. That's true. I'm not saying everybody. I'm just saying it's all because we grew up playing rugby 7 essentially.
Yes, we did.
You know what I mean? I mean, we grew up playing tackle football, which now that I think about it, I mean, if I had a son, I was like, you're a grandson, for example. Hey, Dad, hey, Granddad, I'm going to play tackle with the guy.
No.
You know what I'm saying? And that's crazy. You would even say no.
I would definitely say no because now I understand the reality of it, but back then when I was doing it,
but even with that, it's no head to head. It's safer in some aspect because you're not necessarily leading with your head.
But that head's vulnerable still.
It's all vulnerable.
Yeah,
like I said, they ain't playing out there.
I watched it and I was like, and they're grabbing each other and they're like taking him down and pulling at the ball, and I'm like, man.
Did you see like the last run, the game winning, they call it a tutty? She breaks the tackle. The woman from I don't know her name. Woman from the U.S. She breaks the tackle. She basically runs the length of the field, scores with no time on the clock.
Yes.
I'm just like, man, that's one of the greatest Olympic
you never
plays I've seen.
You never forget that.
Yeah,
and that's going to be one of those things when you talk about rugby. That's the video you're going to see.
Yeah, and again, we got to make this rugby the 15s, and you got the 11s, and then the rugby 7s. What I'm talking about is rugby. What we're discussing is rugby 7.
Yeah.
I think that's the sport that I can see that could translate to an American audience. In addition, I watched some swimming. I watched the women's the gymnastics.
Oh my gosh, the athleticism, and the strength,
bruh,
is. I mean, it's crazy. If I could even do the twist and spins, but I'm not landing. I'm not landing. It's going to be terrible.
And what I'm looking at the U.S., I'm just looking at the whole squad.
It's bad, man.
They are man. I was looking at like the balance beam. I'm looking at the little horse thing. I'm looking at the vault. I'm just like, these women.
All of them,
and even the men. The men won bronze.
Yes.
The brother
Yeah.
The young brother who's, like I said,
he's the first brother I think that I can remember.
Yeah, and he does his thing on social media, and again, he's just breaking so many barriers. And I would just like to see, us have more diversity in the sports that we choose.
Right.
Like, again, I understand there's barriers and everything like that, but I mean, to see those ladies, to see those men, that's just it was a great feeling.
I'm gonna say this. And I'm going to make the case that it's wrong. But men's gymnastics, I don't see the kid that's sitting at home maybe watching that and thinking that that's the sport they want to play.
You don't think so?
I think they should.
Okay.
I think they should, but I don't know if they think that because I'm not sure how I would have responded to my son saying he wanted to do gymnastics. I'm like, what do you mean? Is there even a guy gymnastics program? Like, where are you going to do that at?
Yeah.
But I mean, when you see those dudes, I mean, you can't take away the athleticism. You can't take the strength.
Yeah.
The artistic piece of it is absolutely amazing.
And I say, like, the body control. I was talking to a friend of mine, and he has little kids. He started them out on sports. I was like, man, if I had kids, or if I had boys, or if my daughters were serious about sports, they really wanted to do it, I'm like, we're going to do gymnastics and soccer first. We're going to learn your body control, so that way you can, because the most athletic guys that I just know on the street, they can do all types of flips and do all that sort of thing.
And we look at them and like, man, that's crazy. How'd you do that?
Such body control, right?
So, okay, if you said you had a son and you would put him in gymnastics, what would you be trying to get for him?
I want to build, because when I think about building, I wouldn't necessarily think about building a football, basketball, soccer player. I want to build an athlete. So, and I think there's no better place to start than gymnastics, because if you can have control of your body mid-air, you can do front flips, back flips, you can hoist yourself up without necessarily
strength,
you know what I'm saying, without like the rings, without even necessarily thinking about what you're doing, right? There's guys in the gym who've been lifting weights their whole life. I mean, we've been working out our whole life. I can't do that. You know what I'm saying? So,
I'm breaking my shoulders.
So I'm thinking about just trying to build like that, just elite athleticism. Then once you have that elite athleticism, if you want to continue, fine. If we want to go somewhere else, fine, because it can translate.
It can translate to anything.
Yeah.
All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, we are running a little bit over today, but great show, Hollis. I appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back with you next week.
Peace. Let's Talk with Carl Lee is presented by attorney Frank Walker. Real talk, real experience, real results. FrankWalkerLaw.com. Comment on episodes, ask Carl and Hollis questions, or suggest topics at our Facebook page. Search for Let's Talk with Carl Lee, and remember to like the page to become part of the conversation.
If you fall, dust it off and get back up on your feet. Anything could be a win, yup, even defeat. They say sugar bad for you, why is victory sweet? Couldn't play with big kids, I had to sit in the street and watch from a distance, but over time I grew. If I put in the work, in no time I'm due. Everything that I worked and prayed, I'm okay. If you ask me, how did I do it, I'm gon' say you gotta work, grind, shine, it's mine. Gotta show everybody it's my time. Getting in, you gotta work, grind, shine. Never mind who talking down, cause they lying. Don't talk, you gotta work. 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 You gotta work.